Hi, this is Daryl Myatt from Keller, Texas. In today's daily devotional, I want to talk to you about the temple. In Luke 21, verses 5 and 6, it says, "Then as some spoke of the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and donations, he said, 'These things which you see,'" this was Jesus talking, "'the days will come in which not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down.'" So he was talking about the temple. In the temple Jesus worshipped in, the one he went in and fashioned a whip out of cords and drove out the money changers. That temple. The one wherein his parents went home back to where they were going, and a day or two later they realized Jesus wasn't with them, and they went back to Jerusalem. They found him in the temple. This is the temple Jesus was talking about. This temple was like the largest thing in Jerusalem. It loomed larger than anything else in the spiritual vision of Jesus' followers. And it was, after all, the embodiment of God's promise and the symbol of His presence. This was actually the second temple. Of course, the first one was destroyed. And this was the arena for the ritual and the exercise of the law. Enthusiastic worshipers made their pilgrimage there and made their sacrifices and came to admire the massive, beautiful stones that made up its walls. And Jesus burst the bubble of his disciples' admiration when he looked up at the very impressive structure, this symbol of stability for all the people, and said, "This will all be torn down one day." And it is true, of course, that all monuments made with hands, all empires built by intellect and intestinal fortitude eventually crumble. It's as certain as anything else in history. The temple had been destroyed before and rebuilt, but now Jesus expands his disciples' understanding by telling them of a cataclysm ahead that will tear families apart and bring war across all this land. Now, there's a lot of Bible interpreters that vary in whether this is a prophecy about the destruction of Jerusalem at the hands of the Romans some 40 years later, or a prophecy yet to be fulfilled. Now, I tend to believe it's the earlier one, the ones where the Romans came in 70 AD and destroyed the temple, and the gold started melting as the temple was on fire, started melting and running between the stones. And they took every stone off of there so they could gather all that gold that was running now in liquid form. So every stone indeed was taken down, and the whole temple was destroyed. Now, in either case, though, Jesus' principle is the same. Don't trust in what you can put your hands on. Don't trust in buildings made by man. Our salvation, our redemption, is only found in God and His love. Okay? Jesus did say, when life seems to be falling apart around you, you should lift up your heads because your redemption is drawing near. That's in verse 28. And he should know. He said that when the temple, which was his body, would be destroyed, it would be raised in 3 days. And it was. Any human can rebuild stones, but only God can come back from death. I want to read a few other verses to you. Let's go to Acts 17, verse 24. And that says, "God, who made the world and everything in it, since He is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands." Okay? But He dwells in you. Let me talk about, there's a lot of talk about the next Jewish temple, because it is coming. If you go to the templeinstitute.com and look at what Chaim Rickman is doing, they have the blueprints for the temple. They have the priest's robes and the crowns. They have all the lavers and the tools already needed for daily temple living. They have 80 priests in training right now, for daily temple living. They already have the altar built off-site. They're just waiting for the green light, and as soon as they get it, they're going to build this temple on the Temple Mount. And a lot of people think, they're going to have to destroy the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque to put it up there. Nope, they do not. In fact, there's only one small minaret that would have to come down. It's just this little 12-foot tall minaret that they think is in the very place of the Holy of Holies. let me read to you from Revelation 11, verse 1 and 2. And, of course, this was John, the disciple John, who wrote the book of John. He also wrote 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and he also wrote Revelation. And, of course, he was in spirit, and he had this person appear before him and tell him all these things. And Revelation 11, verse 1 and 2 says, "Then I was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there. But leave out the court which is outside of the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles, and they will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. 3.5 years, the exact period of the Great Tribulation." So you have to note here, Revelation was written in 95 AD. Okay? The Romans destroyed the temple in 70 AD. So when John was given this vision 25 years later, there was no temple there at that time. So this is a prophecy that's going to happen in the future, because there was no temple there at the time. Like I said, it was 25 years after the second temple was destroyed when John wrote this. So, and it says the outer courts will be trampled by the Gentiles. So the Temple Mount will be a shared arrangement. Okay? We're about to see this become part of a new covenant between Israel and the Palestinians. I am willing to bet any peace plan that comes out between these two groups of people will include the Jewish people's right to build their temple. And now don't misunderstand. The Jews are still living in the Old Testament law given by Moses, where a daily sacrifice is part of their life. You know, they're still looking for the Messiah, even though those of us who know Jesus Christ is the Messiah, He's already come. And in fact, the next time He appears will be His second appearance. Well, third if you count His resurrection. So, anyway, the Bible's very clear how God plans to handle His chosen people, the Jews. And they will build this temple, because this says it'll be there. And we're so close to seeing them actually put it up now that it's very exciting. And I just want to go on to say that this temple that will be built by human hands will not be dwelt in by God. Okay? God's in your hearts. He's in you. In fact, let me go to 1 Corinthians 6:19. 1 Corinthians 6:19 says, "Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own?" Okay? Whom you have from God. Let me go to 1 Corinthians 3, verse 17. This is Jesus talking. Oop, wrong one. Sorry. 1 Corinthians 3, verse 17. I should have marked it, but I didn't. Silly me. Okay. I was going to say, wait, Jesus wasn't talking in Corinthians. "If anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him, for the temple of God is holy, which temple you are." Now in the NIV, it says, "If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is sacred, and you are that temple." So God doesn't dwell in a temple made by man. He dwells in this temple. But there will be a third Jewish temple on the Temple Mount, because this tells me there will be. And we're very close to seeing that happen. So, let me just ask you, are there any temples or sanctuaries in your life that you know could pass away, necessitating a new level of faith? Is there something you're putting your faith in, like the disciples were putting their faith in this temple made with bricks and mortar, or whatever it was made with then, stones and gold? Let me just say, don't put your trust in a building. Put your trust in God. God bless you. I hope to talk to you again soon.